The golden afterglow of the setting sun bathed the suburban neighborhood in a warm and inviting radiance. As I pulled into our driveway, I let out a sigh of relief, marking the end of a long and exhausting workday. Yet, the thought of reuniting with my beloved wife, Amy, filled me with a renewed sense of energy. Amy and I have been married for 5 years, blissfully happy, our love growing stronger with each passing day. However, a cloud of unease has loomed over our relationship, stemming from a series of mysterious and unsettling events involving her former boss. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something fundamentally wrong with the way these men treated her. Today, I returned home with hope, albeit cautiously. Amy had recently started a new job, and her new boss, Mike Armstrong, was coming over for dinner. I hoped to believe that this time would be different, that Amy had finally found a boss who respected her boundaries and treated her with the dignity she deserved. Holding a bouquet of deep red roses, their petals soft and velvety, I approached our front door. These roses were Amy's favorites, and I hoped they would bring a smile to her face. The scent of freshly cut grass filled the air as I reached for the doorknob, a sense of anticipation welling up within me. The door creaked open, and there she stood, silhouetted by the warm light of our home. Amy's eyes sparkled with joy as she opened her arms to welcome me. Her fiery red hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her radiant smile illuminated the room. "Ron," she exclaimed, her voice brimming with genuine happiness, "you're home early today." I hugged her tightly, feeling her warmth and the comforting beat of her heart echoing mine. "I've missed you too, Amy," I whispered in her ear, my voice filled with love and longing. "I have a little surprise for you," Amy said, her eyes widening with curiosity as I handed her the bouquet of deep red roses. She accepted them carefully, her fingers gently caressing the petals. "Oh, Ron, they're beautiful," she gasped, her smile brightening even more. "Thank you so much, I love them." We embraced, and I couldn't help but feel a hint of optimism. Perhaps having dinner with her new boss, Mike Armstrong, would mark a turning point in our lives, an opportunity to leave behind the shadows of the past and step towards a brighter, more hopeful future. The shabby chic ambience of our living room, with its soft lighting and luxurious furniture, contrasted sharply with the tension I felt inside. Amy and I looked forward to enjoying a quiet, intimate dinner at home, but something about the evening felt amiss. It wasn't just the unsettling events involving Amy's previous boss that kept me on guard, but a sense of unease that seemed to emanate from the very walls of our home. As I walked into the living room, holding the bouquet of deep red roses I had brought for Amy, I was shocked by an unexpected sight. There, standing in the center of the room, was Mike Armstrong. He held a crystal wine glass in one hand, a confident smile on his face that made me uncomfortable. "Ron, my friend," Mike exclaimed, his voice filled with an unsettling sense of familiarity. He extended his hand towards me, and I shook it reluctantly. "I hope you don't mind me coming over early," he said. "Amy and I were just having a chat." I looked at Amy, who seemed surprised by Mike's early arrival as well, her unease betrayed in her eyes. "Mike," she said, with a forced smile, "I didn't expect you to arrive so soon." Mike's smile widened as he placed the wine glass on a nearby table. "I'm a man who likes to be punctual, Amy," he replied, his eyes never leaving her. "I hope you don't mind me helping myself to a drink." I exchanged a quick, uncertain glance with Amy before responding, "Of course, Mike, please make yourself at home." As Amy and I sat on the couch, Mike joined us, his presence dominating the room. The atmosphere felt tense, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. It was as if Mike's grinning confidence masked an underlying motive that I couldn't fully decipher. I tried to make small talk, discussing our respective days and attempting to break the ice, but Mike seemed determined to maintain an air of authority. His gaze remained fixed on Amy, and the way he inched closer to her intensified my discomfort. "Ron," he finally turned to me and said, "I must say, you're a lucky man to have such a beautiful wife." I forced a smile, my unease growing. "Thank you, Mike." Mike's gaze never left Amy as he continued, "Amy, she's quite a catch, isn't she?" Amy shifted uncomfortably beside me, her eyes flickering between Mike and me. "Mike, please," she said, her voice trembling with unease, "let's not make this evening awkward." But Mike seemed unaffected, his confident smile never wavering. Awkward, Amy? I don't think so. I believe in being frank and direct. In fact, I have something to discuss with both of you tonight. The ominous undertone of his words sent a chill down my spine, and I exchanged another worried glance with Amy. Whatever Mike was thinking, it was clear that this dinner was about to get worse. The tension in the room seemed to tighten like a noose as we sat there, Mike Armstrong's unsettling presence looming over us. My heart pounded in my chest as I exchanged worried glances with Amy, silently communicating our shared discomfort. Finally, unable to bear the suffocating atmosphere any longer, I cleared my throat and mustered the courage to say to Mike, "Mike, you mentioned having something you wanted to discuss with us." Mike leaned back in his chair, swirling the wine in his glass for a moment before carefully setting it down. His gaze met mine, his lips curling into a chilling smirk. "Indeed, Ron," he said, his voice filled with an unsettling confidence, "I have a proposal for both of you." Amy's eyes widened with surprise and concern, her fingers tightly gripping her wine glass. "I'm all ears for what's coming next," I prepared myself, my unease intensifying with each passing moment. "I want to sleep with Amy," Mike bluntly stated, his words hanging in the air like a thick fog. "Ron, I want you to watch." The room fell into a shocked silence, Mike's proposal weighing on us like an unbearable burden. Amy's face turned pale, her eyes looking at me, filled with disbelief and fear. A surge of anger and protectiveness rose within me, but I knew I had to remain calm. "Mike," I said through gritted teeth, my voice trembling with rage, "you must be out of your mind. We would never consider something like that." Mike's smirk remained unshaken as he leaned closer. "Ron," he whispered, "I think you're underestimating the thrill. Imagine the passion, the intensity, it would be an experience you'll never forget." Amy interjected, her voice trembling with indignation. "Mike, this is absolutely inappropriate and disrespectful to both of us. How could you even suggest something like this?" Mike's arrogance seemed to grow with each passing minute, as if he was enjoying our discomfort. "Amy, my dear, I believe in pushing boundaries and exploring new horizons. I'm offering you an opportunity to spice up your marriage." I clenched my fists, struggling to control my anger. "Mike, you need to leave now." He leaned back, his eyes still locked on mine, his smirk never fading. "Consider it, Ron. I'll wait for your answer." As Mike rose from his seat and walked towards the door, the room seemed to collectively exhale. Amy and I were left in a shocked silence, Mike's shocking revelation casting a heavy shadow over our evening. "I can't believe he would even suggest something like that," Amy finally said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. I held her hand, offering the little comfort I could. "We won't let him get away with it, Amy. We'll find a way to deal with this together." Mike Armstrong's unsettling revelation left an indelible mark on our night, casting a long shadow over our home. Amy and I were left to grapple with his proposal, our sense of security shattered. But as the night wore on, a simmering anger began to replace the initial shock. I knew I had to confront Mike. I made an excuse to leave the living room, leaving Amy behind, her worried eyes silently pleading with me to handle the situation. In my man cave, a dimly lit sanctuary adorned with my military memorabilia and knife collection, I contemplated my next move. Taking a deep breath, I decided to reveal my military background to Mike, a part of my past I had seldom shared with anyone. I returned to the living room, my demeanor transformed, the unease that once lingered in my eyes now replaced with a resolute determination. Mike sat on the couch, seemingly unfazed by my earlier departure, his self-satisfied smile still firmly in place. "So soon back, Ron." I locked eyes with him, my voice deep and firm. "Mike, I need you to understand something. I am very protective of Amy. You crossed a line tonight, and I won't stand for it." Mike raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "Crossed a line? I thought we were just having some fun." I continued, my tone unwavering. "You should also know, Mike, that I have a set of special skills. I was a sniper in the military, with a deep appreciation for precision and accuracy." A flicker of unease crossed Mike's face, though he tried to hide it. "Is that so, Ron?" What are you trying to say? I subtly pointed to my knife collection displayed in my man cave, each one gleaming with a lethal edge. I have a passion for knives, Mike. I know how to use them, and if you ever threaten my marriage again, if you ever approach Amy with such intentions again, well, let's just say, I'm not afraid to get up close and personal. The threat was veiled, but Mike could not ignore the seriousness in my voice. His demeanor began to falter, he swallowed hard, his bravado starting to crumble. I think it's time for you to leave, Mike. I said firmly, my eyes never leaving his. He nodded, stood up from the couch, his earlier confidence replaced with unease. As he walked towards the front door, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Mike may have entered our home with bold intentions, but he left with a newfound understanding of the consequences of overstepping his bounds. As I closed the door behind him, I knew the battle was far from over. Amy and I had a difficult road ahead, but I was determined to protect our marriage at all costs. The tense atmosphere in our home persisted after Mike Armstrong left, like an unwelcome guest who stayed too long. Amy and I were left to grapple with his unsettling proposal, our dinner plans derailed by this shocking revelation. We sat at the dining table, our untouched plates of food growing cold. The silence between us was heavy, filled with unspoken words. I couldn't help but glance at the recording device hidden in my pocket, a constant reminder of the evidence we had against Mike. Amy finally broke the silence, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. Ron, I can't believe he had the audacity to say such things. It's disgusting. I reached across the table, comfortingly placing my hand on hers. I know, Amy. What he did is completely unacceptable. We will figure out a way to handle this together. But even as I said these words, the weight of the situation pressed down on me. Mike's proposal had shaken the very foundation of our marriage, and I knew the road ahead would be filled with challenges. I let out a heavy sigh, deciding to reveal the evidence we had against Mike. I took the recording device from my pocket and placed it on the table. Amy, I said, I recorded our conversation with Mike. I wanted to make sure we had proof of what he said. Amy's eyes widened as she looked at the small device. You recorded it? I nodded. This is our insurance, Amy. In case we need it. As she pressed play, Mike's unsettling proposal filled the room once again. Amy's face twisted with anger and disgust as she listened. How could he say such things? She muttered to herself, her voice barely audible. I leaned closer, my heart aching for my wife, Amy. We can't let him get away with this. We need to confront him and make sure he understands the consequences of his actions. Amy nodded in agreement, her resolve strengthening. You're right, Ron. He needs to be held accountable for what he's done. Our determination renewed, we pushed our half-eaten dinner aside and began to strategize. We needed a plan to confront Mike and ensure he faced the consequences of his inappropriate behavior. The night that began with hope had taken an unexpected and unsettling turn. But we were determined to emerge stronger from it. In the following days, the unsettling dinner with Mike Armstrong felt like a battleground, our marriage under siege from his proposal. Amy and I were determined to confront him, but before we did, I knew I needed to gather more information about Mike's past and his motives. I spent hours researching Mike, going through social media profiles, company records, and any available online information. My background as a sniper gave me a meticulous and determined sense, and I was determined to uncover the truth. One evening, as Amy and I sat in the living room, I shared some of my findings with her. Amy, I began, I've been digging into Mike Armstrong's history. The things I've found are unsettling. Amy turned to me, her eyes filled with curiosity. What did you find, Ron? I leaned forward, my laptop on the coffee table. Mike has a history of infidelity. It seems he has a habit of pursuing women, especially those in vulnerable positions. Amy's brow furrowed, looking concerned. This is disturbing. It sounds like he's done this before. I nodded in agreement. Yes, and there's more. It turns out that in a previous relationship, he narrowly escaped serious consequences. He was involved with a group called the Marriage Fidelity Association. Amy's eyes widened in surprise. What is the Marriage Fidelity Association? I explained that it was a secret group that took it upon themselves to ensure the fidelity of married individuals. They organized punishments for those who broke their vows. Mike managed to evade their punishment, but he seemed to continue his suspicious behavior. Amy's expression shifted from surprise to a mix of anger and concern. So he's not just a wandering-eyed boss. He's a repeat offender who knows how to avoid consequences. I nodded gravely. Exactly, Amy. We need to handle this situation carefully. Confronting him directly may not be enough. We must make him understand that there are consequences to his actions. As we continued to discuss our plan, it became clear that our actions needed to involve more than just confronting Mike. We needed to expose his behavior and ensure he faced the consequences he had been avoiding in the past. With renewed determination, we began to gather more evidence and devise a strategy to confront Mike Armstrong. Our investigation revealed unsettling truths, and we were prepared to do whatever it took to protect our marriage and ensure he faced the consequences of his actions. The days leading up to the confrontation with Mike Armstrong were filled with tension and anticipation. Amy and I had gathered enough evidence to expose his misconduct, but we knew confronting him would be a delicate and critical step towards resolution. One evening, as we sat in the living room rehearsing the conversation we would have with Mike, Amy looked at me with a mix of determination and concern. Are we sure we want to do this, Ron? Confronting him means there's no turning back. I held her hand, offering comfort. We can't let him continue to threaten our marriage and the well-being of others. This is the right thing to do. Amy nodded firmly, her resolve strengthened. You're right, Ron. We need to put an end to this. Finally, the night came to confront Mike. When he walked through our front door, his confident demeanor did not betray the turmoil within our home. We invited him into the living room, where the atmosphere was charged with a sense of purpose. Mike sat on the couch, seemingly unaware of the gravity of the situation. What's on your minds? He asked nonchalantly. I exchanged a meaningful look with Amy before speaking. Mike, we've learned a lot about your history and your involvement with the Marriage Fidelity Association. We know about your past actions and how you managed to escape consequences. Mike's self-satisfied smile wavered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. I see you've been digging, Ron. Impressive, Amy. Mike, your behavior is unacceptable. Not just to me, but to the countless others you've wronged. We won't let you continue down this path. Mike feigned innocence, though his confidence was already crumbling. What are you going to do, Amy? Ron, you can't prove anything. At that moment, I revealed the evidence we had collected, including the recording of his shocking proposal. As the recording played, Mike's face turned pale and his bravado dissolved into a fearful silence. Amy looked at him with anger and determination. You need to understand that there are consequences to your actions. We won't let you continue to hurt others. I leaned forward, my voice firm. Mike, we can expose your behavior to your workplace, your friends, and your family. We can make sure everyone knows the truth about you. Mike's eyes darted around the room, his confidence shattered. What do you want? Amy said with a firm resolve. We want you to promise to change your ways. You will no longer exploit or manipulate others using your position. I added. If we hear of you hurting others again, we won't hesitate to expose your behavior. You will face the consequences you've been avoiding so far. Mike, now completely humiliated and fearful, nodded frantically. I promise I will change. I won't do this again. Please don't ruin my life. With our point made, Mike was thoroughly shaken, and Amy and I felt a sense of resolution wash over us. We confronted him, exposed his behavior, and ensured he faced the fear of consequences. As he left our home that night, his confidence replaced with fear, we couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction and closure. Our marriage, once threatened by the shadow of Amy's past boss, had become stronger than ever. We faced the darkness and moved towards the light, ready to move forward. We knew we could protect our love and the well-being of others from those who sought to harm it. Thank you to everyone who took the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. If you haven't already, feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.